And away we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. You are watching and or listening to Coffee Talk, talking about the news, talking about what's going on in the world. We are at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube as well as Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter. And not to forget, Fistful of Radio. That is fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon as we get ready to jump in and see what's going on in the world today. Crazy stuff as always. The news is always a mess. And what are you going to do? And I'll go ahead and I'll acknowledge some of the people that are joining us in the chat portion on YouTube. And for those of you who are listening and not watching, if you ever had the opportunity to join into the chat portion, which takes place at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, again, that is on the YouTube channels. And I'll acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in here. I see Helter is here, Dragon is here, Cyberjack Senior, Urban Angst, Boogers is here. Keisha is here. Michael Adams, R. Frost, Preparedness Veteran, Semper Fi. R. Frost says they're in Montana. John Hushin. And who else? Monkey is here. M. Young is here. Gary Edwards is here as we get ready to dive into what's going on in the world. I see Patricia Davis has chimed in here also. And of course, top story is everything Israel. And I'm not going to give you that yet, though. We are going to talk about it a little bit, but I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to start with something else that's a pet peeve of mine. Because, and it's not the Ukraine either, because remember, the Ukraine doesn't matter anymore. Ukraine, where's that? Who's Ukraine? Where did that come from? It's disappeared now because of the problem in the Middle East. Although, to be fair, it's a bigger problem. Donna Beaver is here from North Georgia. Daisy is here. Thanks for joining us today as we go ahead and we start popping things open. And this is a peeve of mine. I have many, but this is one because it talks about drug companies, prescription medications. I don't trust personally prescription medications. I can't tell you what to do. But personally, I do not trust them. I don't like them. R. Frost says kind of like the flu disappeared during the C virus. And remember, for those of you who are new to this, I say C virus on purpose because it helps keep me out of trouble. This is from NBC News. Pfizer to price almost did it. C virus drug Paxlovid at $1,390 per course. Youch. Pfizer will price a 5-day course of its C-virus antiviral drug Paxlovid at $1,390 when the company starts to transition it to the commercial market later this year. And keep in mind, the reason it's not in the commercial market yet is because the government was buying it. A company spokesperson on Wednesday confirmed the price, which was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. That list price, which is before rebates and other discounts to insurers and pharmacy benefit managers, is more than double the $529 amount the federal government paid for Paxlovid. The government has purchased and distributed Paxlovid to the public for free since December 2021. It's not free. Let me stop right there. It's not free. Nothing from the government is free. It is never, ever, ever free because your tax dollars have paid for it. And if they run out of tax dollars, they'll raise your taxes more. So let's just bear that in mind. There is no free anything from any government source. Back to the article. But beginning in 2024, Pfizer will sell Paxlovid directly to health insurers, which comes as demand for the C virus vaccines and treatments slumps nationwide. And you might recall, some of you, some weeks back, I took a look at their stock because their stock has really taken a nosedive this year. it was peaking like amazingly, and then bam, right over the edge, because people don't want this anymore. They don't like it. They don't trust it. They tried it. It made them sick or something else. People are concerned about after effects. There's a lot of stuff out there, and you're exempt. They made it so that you're exempt from being, or they are exempt from being pursued for any problems that people have with their health after using this product. So they're slumping in sales. The government's not going to buy it anymore. And their solution is to double the price. Yeah, that makes sense. That'll work great. Makes perfect sense to me. And as we catch up some of these comments, yeah, M. Young says, Big Pharma. There you go. D-Lo is here. He made it. Fluke Man is here. And M. Young says, our taxes pay for almost everything. Yeah, pretty much, even if you're not from this country. R. Frost says to print more money. And Johnny says, in my backyard, drilling holes in massive boulder on a break, just chiming in. Okay, keep pounding away at it. Helter says, so if you're uninsured or if your insurance decides it isn't necessary, you're stuck with the bill. That's right. This will drive down usage for profit medicines, goes against the interest of public health until the expiration of their patent. Because I know that the medication over the counter or behind the counter medication, prescription medications can only be patented for so long, and then it becomes open source, and then anybody can make generics of it. So, yeah, but for the time being, you'd have to pay that out of pocket if your insurance company didn't want to bother, or if it wasn't deemed necessary. And I'm sure the insurance companies don't want to pay for this. And if they do, they're just going to raise your premiums anyways, because that's what insurance companies do. Oh, we're having to shell out for a ton of this. Let's raise the premiums again for something you probably don't even need. Semper Fi says, I would rather paint my house with a Q-tip than trust the government. Wow, there you go. And Dragon says, this is the real problem in healthcare. Drug prices like these are one of the reasons we get ripped off on premiums. Yeah, and they try to squeeze the most out of it they can until their patent expires. And then it flatlines. You know, you can charge whatever you want when you're the only one that's producing the drug. But then when all the generics come in, the price bottoms out, because any drug company can pound this stuff out and sell them for like $10 a bottle or whatever. You know what I mean? And then R. Frost says, it's almost like people are discovering they don't need Paxlovid because their natural immune is better. I hope that's what it is. I hope that's what it is. Preparedness says, treating the economy like a blank, bottomless pit of money. Well, it is, especially if the government's buying it from you. And Johnny says, everything rolls downhill, right? Pass the cost down the road. Exactly. Everything rolls downhill. That's how it works. I just wanted to throw that out there because I have a big pet peeve with pharmaceuticals. You know, I have a handful. Public schools, prescription medications, things like that, they irritate me. Continuing on here, another comment, and we'll get on. Urban says, for a drug to be safe and effective, it takes 3 to 5 years for research and development. Any drug they pump out in 6 months cannot be deemed safe or effective. You take it, you're the experiment. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. They really pounded that out. And we don't know. We are the guinea pigs here. We are the lab rats. Not me, because I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I was like, no, I'd rather have the C virus and just see what happens, because it's got a very, very tiny mortality rate, if we're being honest about it. But I could have had it and not even know. You know what I mean? And that's fine. That's fine. As we continue on here, and we'll get into the top news stories. And this comes from ESSA News. Berlin is a battlefield. The Jews fear for their lives. No kidding. You know why? Because this is a global problem. This is why I say that the issue with Israel and Gaza is a bigger issue than is the Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia are having a problem with each other, and other governments are interfering, including America. But you're not going to have Ukrainians running around on the streets in Western countries, firebombing things and throwing bricks and waving flags and attacking people, knifing people in the back, pushing them in front of subway trains, and so on. That's not going to happen. But they will do it. The people from the Gaza will do it. People from all over the Middle East will do that. And the people from all over the Middle East are all over the Western world illegally under the guise of migrants, infiltrating and have been infiltrating in droves at least since 2015, especially in Europe. So yeah, no big surprise there, Berlin. Congratulations. Preparedness is farcical, considering America is supposed to have a AA plus credit rating, smoke and mirrors. And 500 Magnum has joined us here now. Thanks for joining us today. But yeah, Berlin is a battlefield. You see the riot police here hemming somebody up. Excuse me. Pro-Palestinian demonstrations in the streets, attempts to set synagogues on fire, brutal anti-Semitic incidents, and hours-long clashes with police. Berlin turns into a battlefield, and Jews fear for their own health and lives. The escalation of the conflict in the Middle East is increasingly evident on the streets of Berlin. On Tuesday, despite the ban, there were several pro-Palestinian demonstrations. The largest ones took place near the Brandenburg Gate and the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. Free Palestine chanted aggressive protesters. Oh yeah, we made a ban. They're really going to listen. The people of the government of Germany ought to know better than that. Bottles filled with gasoline. It's called a Molotov cocktail. And stones were thrown at the intervening officers. Clashes occurred with 20 officers being injured. Several cars and trucks were set on fire. And in response to the protesters, as well as to extinguish the fires, the uniformed officers used water cannons. German media reports. You're not seeing this in mainstream media, are you? On Wednesday, two masked perpetrators threw Molotov cocktails towards the synagogue on Brunnenstrasse in the Mitte district. The building housed not only Jewish house of prayer, but also a preschool. Fortunately, there were no casualties. The bottles broke on the sidewalk and the fire was quickly put out nevertheless. Following the incident, over 50 people gathered at the scene to participate in a vigil and express their solidarity with the Jewish community. They had lit candles and banners with slogans calling for an end to all anti-Semitic actions. Isn't that sweet? Yeah, we're gonna stand there with signs, and that's gonna solve the problem. And you see some of this video footage, I believe, is from Germany here. The chairman of the police union, Johann Kopelike, I'm guessing, is calling for concrete action. He speaks of the disgusting atmosphere prevailing in Germany, the necessity of support from politicians and society, and the need for a quick process and sentences for riot participants. If they're not citizens, send them back wherever they came from. This has got to be the course of action. Israel already said it. You're going to protest? You're going to protest against Israel in our streets? I got a bus ticket for you. We talked about that yesterday. They will throw you out of the country. That's what needs to be done. That's the attitude that needs to be taken in all of these countries, as far as I'm concerned. Urban says Islamic Jihad and Hamas are global issues. Spoiler, they hate Christians almost as much as they hate Jews. Yeah, they hate everybody. They hate each other. They can't even get along with each other. They burn and blow up and kill and murder each other all the time. And they're going to treat us any different? This is why I picked on Queers for Palestine so bad earlier this week. Queers for Palestine. Are you serious? Go there and try that. Honestly, I can't stress that enough. Preparedness says it's turned into a global religious war. Muslims versus the non-believers, and they're using Israel as the initiator. And then Johnny says, express solidarity. Express solidarity. My goodness, I hate that phrase. Yeah, I ain't going to do nothing else, but I'll hold a candle for you. Flukeman says, think the ban is not just to deter troublemakers, but also makes it easier for the police to make arrests and judges give heavier sentences. And Chris says, let's all join hands and sing Kumbaya. Yeah, hands across America. Hands across America. Kumbaya, my lord. Indeed. And that's what a lot of people think. A lot of people believe that. They think, oh, if we just show them peace and love, they'll understand. Yeah, they'll understand that you're weak and they will run you the hell over. That's what's going to happen. Berlin is a battlefield. Yes, indeed, it is. But what is Berlin going to do about it? Anything? What's Berlin going to do about this? Again, if these people are not, look at that. If these people are not citizens, they need to be expatriated back to wherever the hell they came from in every Western country, not just Berlin, not just Germany, because this is happening all over. This is happening in the United States. This is happening in Australia. Australia, the police are baffled. They don't know what the hell to do. They don't even want to go on duty because they're so nervous about the violence. And again, they love throwing stuff in the Middle East. They'll pitch rocks all over the place, rocks and bricks and anything they can get their hands on. They're used to that. That's how they live where they come from. And we expect them to behave better because we gave we'll give them welfare. We'll give them checks. We'll let them go to school. We'll be real nice to them and they'll change. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. That always works out so well. 500 says California's BS magazine ban was found unconstitutional, and now the AWB, as well as its beautiful the scumbags, will undoubtedly appeal it through, and it will go to the Supreme Court. Yeah, I heard that that was overturned. Urban says Israel didn't initiate anything. There are now 203 confirmed Israeli hostages held in Gaza. I have yet to hear a single pro-Palestine organization call for their immediate release. Yeah. And 500 Magnum says if it's successful there, it will fall nationwide across the country. I'm going to cry. And Gary says the more chaos there is, the stronger the form of order or government becomes. Yeah, because the government has to enact even stronger laws and stronger regulations in order to get it under control. But that will fall on everyone, not just the people who are doing wrong. That's the problem. Fluke Man says, have you read the Quran? Some people said it actually says Muslim must kill non-Muslims. Is that true? It alludes to something like that. One passage, and I forget how it goes. There's a passage that a lot of them allude to where it says, there is a Jew behind that tree, go and kill him, or something like that. I really don't remember a lot of it very, very well, to be honest. But I have read it before. Monkey says if these elections in the Western world came up and they decided to do nothing about the issues with refugees and illegal immigrants destroying their country, then the West will truly be dead. As we move along here, and this ties in, and I think this is really interesting. We talked about her yesterday, and this is from Newsweek. Greta Thunberg, pro-Palestine message turns heads. And I'll read you this article real quick, and then I'll tell you what I think here. It says Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg is drawing new attention for her apparent support of Palestine in Gaza amid calls for a ceasefire. Thunberg, 20, posted a photo on Friday to her 14.6 million Instagram followers. Good Lord. Showing her and 3 allies holding signs in favor of Palestinians in Gaza, including I stand with Gaza and this Jew stands with Palestine. Another sign reads, Climate Justice Now. On October 7, Hamas led the deadliest Palestinian militant attack on Israel in history. Israel subsequently launched its heaviest ever airstrikes on Gaza. I think we all know this part already. An Israeli military spokesman said the families of 203 people thought to have been kidnapped by Hamas and taken into Gaza has been notified. This is the photograph. Hold on, one more thing. Today we are striking in solidarity with Palestine and Gaza, Thunberg wrote in a caption for the image, also shared to her 5.4 million X, formerly Twitter, followers. The world needs to speak up and call for an immediate ceasefire, justice, and freedom for Palestinians and all civilians affected. What about the civilians that were attacked by the people in the Gaza Strip? What about the people that were attacked by the Palestinians, Greta? But there she is. You see, this person has free Palestine. This person says this Jew stands with Palestine. Are you Jewish? How far removed from the true Hebrew nationality and religion are you? Because that wouldn't jive in the Middle East. Stand with Gaza. There's Greta. Now, Greta is a washout, okay? She became legally an adult, and the young person fighting for climate rights, that theme died. And she kind of faded away for a while. Now she turns up all over the place, basically getting arrested everywhere she goes for obstructing doorways and doing whatever she does. She keeps getting arrested. She was arrested in London the other day. I'm willing to bet, because people like her, celebrity activists like this, they don't think for themselves. They follow instructions. That's where the paycheck comes from. Somebody in authority told her this was a good idea, hoping this would finally put the nail in the coffin to make her go away. Because they're done with her. Maybe she doesn't realize that she's been used her whole life. She's been used by these people because it fit their agendas, and now she's not useful to them anymore. Now she's just embarrassing whatever she thinks she stands for. I wouldn't be surprised if some person in authority told her this was a good idea because they knew it would destroy her. Anyways, catching up here with a couple of the comments. R. Frost says, slay the unbeliever wherever you find him. Thank you, R. Frost. It was like 20 years ago plus that I read any of that. Raccoon Eyes is here. He says, Thunberg is a shill. It was proven. Monkey says, all of these supports for Gaza and Palestine won't ever even matter to the average Palestinian. They just call you an infidel and want you unalived. Yeah. Monkey says, okay, Palestine. Raccoon Eye says, as a video shows, the arrests are staged. That's interesting. And Gary Smith says, Greta was only ever a flash in the pan, but she hasn't realized it yet. Exactly. And like anyone else, like Cher yesterday, talking about Donald Trump, we brought that up. If Donald Trump gets elected again, I'll leave the country. Sure you will. Sure you will. And you'll move to where? Sweden. And you'll live there with Whoopi Goldberg and all the other people who said they were going to leave and never did. They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. Helter says she doesn't understand the conflict. The pro-Palestine rhetoric is too mainstream. M. Young says, I don't think she realizes anything. She's going to learn the hard way one day. I think she's going to learn it right now. Again, people like that, celebrity activists like that, they don't make their own decisions. It's kind of like, who is it? The mayor from Nightmare Before Christmas. And he says, Jack, please, I need your help. I'm only an elected official. I can't make decisions on my own. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but you get my point. Armid says she's autistic. I think I heard that. And Johnny has to go. That's okay. Urban says autistic and rich. Yeah, very much so from all of this activism. But her, like I said, her time is gone. Maybe they think she's an embarrassment now. We're done with Greta. How do we get rid of her? Hey, let's just pass it down that this would be a good idea, because now nobody's going to want anything to do with her. Armin says rich people can afford to do goofy things. Yes, they can. That just stood out for me here. And it's just so foolish. All of that is so foolish. And then they mix it in with climate justice. Do any of these people own a bottle of conditioner? Just asking. Anyway, as we move along, maybe Greta should talk to this person that's coming up in this next article about a survivor of the attack at the music festival. This is from Fox News. It says, American survivor of Hamas attacks on music festival returns to see anti-Israel protests in the U.S. And she says, quote, "I don't feel safe." Couple more comments real quick here and we'll move on. Dragon says someone needs to remind her that just recently Israel drastically reduced Gaza's fossil fuel consumption and carbon footprint. Yeah, there you go. And R. Frost says the Quran also encourages Muslims to deceive the unbeliever in order to slay them. And we see a lot of that. And then Fluke Man says when nobody cares about Greta no more, maybe she can team up with Disney to make a movie about her. We can just watch it flop. Yeah, I feel bad for whoever the person is that does the reviews that would have to watch that mess. Armid says Greta should be Biden's caretaker. And then Johnny says, I don't know any Jews standing with Palestine. I don't believe she's a Jew. Well, those people that protested at the Capitol, and I talked about that yesterday, claimed to be Jews for Palestine in terms of trying to make the U.S. force Israel to stop the counterattack. And I'm like, how far removed are you from actually being true Hebrew people? Are you technically Hebrew in nationality, but not in faith? Because there are splinter factions that get further and further away from the core belief system. And there are people that are extreme with it, like ultra orthodox, and they get really weird. But traditional Hebrew / Jewish faith people are fine. There's extremists, and then there's people that are like really, really leftist. But here you go right here. It says Natalie Sandaji, an American woman who escaped Hamas assault on Israel's music festival October 7th, recounted her harrowing experience to Fox News Digital and went on to say that although she's back in the United States now, she does not feel safe, seeing how easily brainwashing on social media is fueling anti-Semitism and anti-Israel demonstrations. Sanandaji, a 28-year-old Jewish New Yorker born to Israel and Iranian parents, said that growing up, she never understood how people could allow the Holocaust to happen until she narrowly escaped Hamas. This is deadly assault firsthand and personally realized that some of her fellow festival attendees hadn't made it out alive. And then she saw the anti-Semitic messaging that followed. A lot of people ask me if I feel safe now that I'm back in New York. I don't, Sanandaji said. A lot of the things I've been hearing and seeing since getting back, a lot of the videos of the protests, these pro-Palestinian protests, something I would like to say about this is whatever side you're on in regards to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, all the power to you. But this is not about Israel and Palestine. This is about Hamas, a terror organization who is just as complicit in the deaths of these innocent Palestinians as they are in the deaths of innocent Israelis. And you know what it makes me think of is in the Vietnam War, when a lot of, trying to put a pin on how she feels. After Vietnam, when a lot of the U.S. soldiers were returning home and they were coming back to protests and having trash and stuff thrown at them and people screaming at them and calling them baby killers and all kinds of garbage. These are people who, most of them were drafted, forced to go over there, and then confronted with situations where they were dealing with child soldiers and suicide bombers and all kinds of crazy stuff. And they came back emotionally broken to a country that hated them for being forced to go over there and deal with that. And I got to wonder how she, obviously she's upset, and I don't blame her for being upset about that. And you're going to come back and you're going to see these people protesting who don't even know what the hell they're talking about. When they don't even know what they're talking about. Jack says, wonder what all these Muslims will think who are wanting this war will think when Israel uses its nuclear weapons. If they get pushed into a corner, they'll use them. And Bull says, Greta is used up for climate change stuff. She will eventually follow her generation and set up an OnlyFans and sell feet pictures. Really? And then Bull also says industrial war machine getting fed now that it was allowed to happen in Israel. Greta, I don't know about Greta having an OnlyFans. She could probably pull it off because she certainly has enough followers on Instagram and Twitter, like 20 million between the two of them. Good Lord, I'm in the wrong line of work. I mean, I think I probably have 50 people on X, Twitter, whatever. Maybe 50 people are on there, and then whatever I've got here. It's crazy, but I empathize or sympathize to a point. I can't say I empathize because I haven't experienced that, but I sympathize with what that woman is saying about going through that, being at that festival, being helpless, being shot at, having friends of yours and acquaintances of yours die there, and then getting scooped up and brought back to America. And it's like, oh, how do you feel? You feel better now? No. What the hell's going on? What is all this? What are these protests? What are people burning flags and screaming and carrying on? No. Jack says, do you think the U.S. will have another ammo shortage like we did during 2020? That's possible. That is possible because a lot of people are going to want to go out and stock up again, and that's going to create a demand. I think so. And Keisha says, "Is Israel an ally of America?" Is that what you mean? It didn't type right. Is Israel an ally of America? Technically, yeah, I believe we are. You know what else I'm wondering about this woman that Fox News interviewed is if she's one of the people that DeSantis brought back, because DeSantis made arrangements for people to be repatriated back to the United States from Israel. And I wonder if she's one of the people that he's responsible for doing that. How come he's doing it and the Biden administration isn't? That's a good question. Votes? Maybe it's for votes. And another one from the New York Post. I thought this was particularly interesting. It says top Iranian Pentagon aide keeps security clearance despite being accused of spying for Tehran. It says an Iranian-born Pentagon official is to keep her top-level security clearance despite being named as part of a covert influence campaign run by Tehran and being called a spy by Republicans. I don't know why they got to point that out. Ariane Tabatabi appeared to be a willing recruit in the covert influence operation run by Tehran's foreign ministry, according to a trove of leaked files revealed last month by Semaphore. She was previously a key aide to the suspended Iranian envoy Robert Malleh, whose secret ties to Tehran sparked congressional uproar. Since early 2022, Tabatabai has been chief of staff of the Pentagon's Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflict, Christopher Meyer. Malleh was quietly placed on unpaid leave in June for his alleged mishandling of protected material, but the Pentagon will let Tabatabai, 38, keep her $153,434 a year job, along with her top secret security clearance, the Washington Free Beacon reported Wednesday. And here she is sitting at the table. Is there a close-up picture of her? I don't see one. And my question is, how is somebody who's not even born in this country, only in America, not born in this country, have top Pentagon security clearance in the first place? How's that? And she's making $153,000 a year. Wow. I need that kind of money. I need all the help I can get. And if it's been revealed that leaked files by Semaphore, a trove of leaked files released last month by Semaphore, is it fair to say that she's being called a spy by Republicans? Also, she worked for someone who's been put on administrative leave for spying. Oh, wow. But yeah, she's still working there. Way to go, Biden administration. How does that happen? This wouldn't be tolerated anywhere else. Wouldn't be tolerated anywhere else. And R. Frost says the Honor Day factory was hit by a fire, and Lake City has switched over to DoD production only, no civilian sales. Shortages inbound. There we go. And Cruising is here. Oh, and Cruising, I got to thank you, Cruising. You had alluded to the Stray Cat GoFundMe yesterday, and I wasn't sure what you were talking about, but I guess you made a donation to it. I appreciate that. I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate it and to say thank you for that. So anytime anybody helps out the channel, especially if it's something for the stray cats, I really do my best to try to let them know that it means something to me. But Cruising says, this reminds me of when I got caught in the shooting at ZombieCon in 2015, not being hurt, not being hit. It took a while to even get back into the area without feeling like I was in immediate danger. Interesting. Urban says, Israel is an ally of America. If it falls, the West is next. Well, we're the goal. They don't care about Israel as much as they care about crushing all of Western society. Loyal Tangi says, you can escape to Israel if you're a pedo. So many elite mainstream dual citizenship. Okay. And Flukeman said, should have invested in companies that manufacture ammo. And Jack says, our enemies have been in government for decades. Yeah, I know. And they're getting well paid for it, too. Well paid and well cared for and well protected. Meanwhile, all the rest of us got to struggle. All the rest of us got to struggle day in and day out. Hell, I haven't even had my root canal yet. By the time I get around to it, it'll probably be too late. Unbelievable. And I had talked about this the other day too. A couple more comments. Cruising says, my comment had been made in regards to the comments about the people being pulled out of Israel. Like, I imagine they won't be able to be around loud music again for a long time. Yeah, I see your point. I see your point, because it was a music festival ongoing at the time. Jack says, was a Muslim for 3 years. Yeah, they brainwashed people to hate the West and hate anyone outside of the cult. And thanks for chiming in with that, because it's good to get a little bit of perspective. Now, we talked about this last week about Poland. Poland is in the news again, and it's just a blurb in the news, but this is important. And this comes from Time. It says, what Poland's surprise election means for the European Union, because the election didn't go the way anybody in Poland expected it to. Something weird happened. It says, in Poland, an unexpected surge of voters ready for change has ousted a populist coalition government in favor of a pro-European Union and more moderate group of leaders. The Law and Justice Party, in power since 2015, won the most parliamentary seats, but its coalition partners didn't perform well enough to allow current Prime Minister Jaroslaw Kaczynski to form another government. It's a striking win for political Donald Tusk and his civic coalition. It's also great news for the European Union, which can expect a new government in Warsaw that will respect the European Union's rules on democracy and rule of law. The biggest surprise on election day was a turnout estimated at 73%. I don't believe that. That's like the 81 million votes for Biden. Something fishy going on, and I'll get into that here in a minute. The highest figure in post-communist Poland's history. It's a result all the more striking given Kaczynski's unapologetic use of state media to boost his party support. All politicians do that. Once in place, Poland's new government will work on making the changes its leaders have promised and the European Union has called for. In particular, it will move to restore the political independence of the judiciary and media in line with European Union rules. These reforms, in turn, will help Poland access as much as possible of the 35 billion euros that Poland can now claim as part of the so-called Recovery and Resilience Facility money that Brussels set aside for member states to help with pandemic recovery and the EU's ambitious green and digital transition plans. And there's more, but I may as well stop right there, because I'll tell you what happened. There, first of all, 73% turnout. I really highly doubt that. I think something fishy happened, although I can't say it. any more than I can say I think something fishy happened with 81 million votes for Biden. Secondly, the government that's coming in wants to be in bed with the European Union, and they're going to follow all of the European Union's rules, which the present government, or the government that's on its way out, wasn't doing. They wanted to keep Poland Polish. And the reason that they're doing it is because right here, this is the key to the whole thing. These reforms in turn will help Poland access as much as possible of the 35 billion euros that Poland can claim as part of the so-called recovery and resilience facility money. Okay, so basically, because they weren't playing ball with the EU wasn't letting them tap into their recovery fund. Now they can, as long as they play along. How long do you think it'll be before Poland is overrun with illegal immigrants? This is my question, because the EU, they're having trouble all over. They're looking for a dumping ground for all these extra people, and I think it's possible here that the new administration coming in will sell Poland out to access this money and create possibly irreversible circumstances. But I'll go ahead and catch up a few more comments. Urban says, "Uh-oh, Poland is about to go woke." It looks that way, or the government is. I have a hard time believing 73% of their population turned out to vote. Preparedness says, "Watch Poland's illegal migrant problem start to grow now." There you go. Rodney says, "Seems like some election fortification happened in Poland." And Jack says, "Poland is just a buffer state. They know if Russia messes with them, Europe will come to their aid against Russia. Poles forget what they were under 30 years ago." Yeah, they'll be under the same mess with the European Union. Who wants to be under the European Union's authority? It's been a disaster. It's been an absolute disaster. This is why they had the Brexit. Great Britain was losing money in it. They were like, why are we paying all this money to the European Union and we're not getting any of it back? We may as well keep it here. I don't blame them for getting out, even though they were highly criticized for it. Gary says Poland hasn't accepted Islamic refugees and skated out of terrorist attacks, unlike the EU. And DIY says Israel should arm up the Palestinian Christians. And then Cruising says war in Poland coming. Who knows? Well, they could be afraid also because a lot of, and this is another tie-in too, I talked about this a few weeks back, a lot of the materials that are being moved into the Ukraine were coming through Poland. And the former administration, because obviously now it's changing, put an end to it. They said, we don't want you moving weapons through here to bring into the Ukraine anymore. We don't want to be involved. Then Biden made a $2 billion loan to the Polish government to help them upgrade their military, a floating loan. Suddenly now, and remember, this is like 2 weeks ago, suddenly now they have an election with a 73% turnout, and the current government that rejected being used for transportation in and out of Ukraine anymore by Western allies, and has been rejecting letting the EU dump illegal immigrants in their country, suddenly that government is wiped out. Just like that. And they're going to get even more money from the European Union. How convenient. And Jack says, wonder how many mosques will be popping up across Poland now. Oh, man. Urban says, that's okay. When Poland inevitably gets overrun with Islamic chaos, they can always blame Israel like everyone else does. Ouch. Ouch. I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. But, yeah. I think there's something really fishy going on. I think their government has sold out their people for the $2 billion from the Biden administration and for the as much of the 35 billion euros that they're going to be able to squeeze out of the European Union for playing along now, for getting friendly with the European Union. And also, I'll remind you again, and I think it's real important to point it out, that they had stopped allowing Western allies, the United States, Great Britain, whoever, to move munitions through Poland into the Ukraine. They were like, don't use us as a stopping point anymore to send ammunition to the Ukraine. We don't want any part of this. Now suddenly, that government no longer exists, or it's on its way out. There you go. And somebody here, I guess they're trying to troll. So you can take that somewhere else if that's what you're doing. What do we got here? I got a few more interesting articles here to go on. And this one is about detransitioning. Flipping the script here, this is the America Insider. And this is another one of those news stories that you're not really seeing very much about. U.S. states adopting a detransitioner Bill of Rights. And this is a subject that comes up from time to time, but I think this is important. It says U.S. states are considering the detransitioner Bill of Rights as a model legislation proposed by medical nonprofit Do Not Harm. The blueprint was written in order to address the many teens who have openly admitted they wish they would not have transitioned from their biological gender. The legislation would effectively provide assistance to individuals seeking a detransition and would additionally leave room for victims to bring lawsuits against those who pressured them into the mutilation of their bodies. Medical professionals should publicly acknowledge the plight of detransitioners and research ways to help and support those who regret undergoing these procedures. Dr. Stanley Goldfarb of Do Not Harm. A crucial step in protecting the rights and well-being of children who have been subjected to experimental sex change treatments. The legislation sheds light on the multitude of consequences that came from transitioning, affirming that states have a compelling government interest in protecting the health and safety of its citizens, especially vulnerable children and adolescents. And it goes on to say, any healthcare professional or physician who provides a minor with a gender transition procedure is strictly liable to that minor if the treatment results in any injury, including physical, psychological, emotional, or physiological harm within the next 25 years, the model legislation reads. And down here again, one more comment. I couldn't be more grateful for the 22 states that have banned or restricted gender transition procedures for minors. I've testified in many state legislators, and I hope more states will act, stated Chloe Cole, a detransitioner who travels to speak on the issue. And I think that's pretty interesting because we've been hearing that more and more recently. There's a wave of people who have been through these procedures as a young person and came to the realization that, yeah, this was a bad idea. This was a bad idea, and I can't fix it because a lot of what happens when they do the surgeries is irreversible. It's irreversible. You can't fix it. You can't repair it. You can't replace it. You can do a little bit of surgery to try to disguise the damage, but you'll never be the same. And that's going to sink in at some point. If you go through this when you're a kid, and then you get a little bit older and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? It's too late. It's far too late. And they are pressured. Many of the people who have talked about this have talked about being pressured by people from within that culture, pressured by doctors, pressured by a lot of people. And who's accountable for it? These are kids. You won't let them smoke. You won't let them drink. You won't let them drive. You won't let them do anything because they're too young to make those kinds of decisions. It's too dangerous. They don't know what they're doing. But yeah, I'll slice your balls off. I'll remove your breasts. I'll take your ovaries out. Who can make those decisions? Unbelievable. Jack says, biggest we told you so. They destroyed their mind and body because they never listened. M. Young says it's BS. We got penalized for the stimulus checks on our taxes. I guess that was their plan so they could give everyone else money. I'll be glad when this administration is gone. Hopefully, we don't get something worse. And Helter says, I wonder what states are going to do when physicians who don't treat transgender people decide that they don't like the idea of the state telling them who they can treat and how they treat them. And then Cruising says, Jonathan Hadid and Abigail Schreier wrote deeply on detransitioners back in 2018 and 2020. Their warnings and messages were silenced by the mainstream. I'm sure they were, because they don't like talking about that. You're not supposed to talk about that there's a deep psychological effect. Again, you're permanently altering your body, and it cannot be fixed. Even cosmetically, it can barely be fixed. There's very little that can be done. You're always going to have those scars. You're always going to have that phantom limb. Phantom limb syndrome, when something is removed from your body and you still can feel it. You feel like you lost your arm, but your hand feels itchy. And it's like there's no hand. You feel that emptiness. There's a loss. Jack says, wonder what all these trans people will think when they're in their 50s and 60s if they live that long. Who knows? Who knows? And Raccoon says depopulation. Yeah, it's like the modern day equivalent of a eunuch. And eunuchs are often referenced from within some of those communities as being proof that there's always been trans people. But remember, eunuchs were forced. They were either coerced or straight up forced to become eunuchs as part of the slave trade. They wanted, typically males, obviously. Males were the ones that were castrated because they wanted to make sure that they could not reproduce. And Fluke Man says detransitioners are bullied and called transphobic. That's true. That's true. And Jack says it's sterilization. And then Gary said Schreier's book is Irreversible Damage. Thank you, in case anybody wants to look that up. But this should come as no surprise. I'm actually glad to see this. Maybe some of these doctors will take a step back. You know, those doctors who took the Hippocratic oath that they shall do no harm. They'll take a step back and think twice before they start putting like a 9-year-old on the slab. If you catch my drift, it's just wrong. It really is just wrong. And Keisha says the castrati were made up of boys castrated so they would keep a high singing voice. And Gary says Matthew 19, 11, and 12, there's 3 types of eunuchs according to Jesus. As we move on here. And this comes from Newser. Is it Newser or Newer? Did I read it wrong? It is Newser. Newser, our old friend Alex Jones, if I can say that name without getting in trouble. Alex Jones must pay $1.1 billion in the school incident damages. We'll just call that, despite bankruptcy. And I'll get into that. A couple more comments really quick here. Jack says off topic, but I think it would be, do you think it would be better to invest in freeze-dried food or just stick to classic prepping and canning? Both. Freeze-dried food, a lot of that, it's heavily salted or is missing a lot of nutrients or it doesn't have very much protein. If you look at those long-term foods that you're supposed to add water to, those 30-year supply emergency foods and stuff, they're really not very healthy. So, but it's good to have different things to fall back on. Traditional foods, gardening if you can do it, and freeze-dried stuff for like deep emergencies. Gary says, born so, made so, self-made, body, mind, spirit. And back to Alex here. It says Alex Jones may be filing for bankruptcy, but he'll still have to pay $1.1 billion in damages owed to families of 9 school incident mass shooting victims who sued him for defamation. Reuters reports that a judge in Jones's personal bankruptcy case ruled Thursday that while bankruptcy can eliminate certain debts and legal judgments, it does not apply to judgments resulting from willful or malicious injury. Lawyers for the Sandy Hook families, oh, I said it now, I kept trying to avoid it, have argued Jones' spreading of lies about the tragedy that killed 21st graders and 6 educators, falsely claiming that the incident was a false flag operation with the goal of seeing Americans' guns confiscated, was indeed such a willful and malicious action that would be exempt from bankruptcy protection, the New York Times reports. The judge did, however, exclude the $323 million in attorney's fees and costs that were awarded above and beyond the $1.1 million in damages, ruling that those punitive damages were not clearly established during the trial to have been resulted from willful and malicious actions. Now, this is real interesting. First of all, how in the hell did the families of this school incident, 9 families, 9 Sandy Hook, or I said it again, 9 school incident mass shooting victims, accumulate $323 million in attorney's fees? Does that sound plausible to anybody? $323 million in attorney fees? I'm glad they won't be getting that. $1.1 billion in damages for staunchly, I will point that out, staunchly expressing his opinions on the situation. This is being done as a warning to everybody else to toe the line. Because I'll tell you right now, an argument I make all the time, you don't have freedom and you don't have liberty. You have privileges that are awarded to you from the governments that our ancestors have put in place. Privileges. Because if it was truly a freedom or truly a liberty, a signature on a piece of paper could not take it away from you. And this is a way to subtly remind everyone of that fact without coming right out and saying it. Freedom of speech? I think not. I think not. Rodney says, this insane fine they gave Alex is beyond ridiculous. 500 says, I'm so glad my mother didn't have my balls cut off. I'm very lucky considering I'm a millennial. Oh my God. And Jack says 1.1 billion is insane. He doesn't even have that in all assets. Of course not even close to it. And it was really 1.5 because remember they're excusing 323 million in attorney fees. And again, how do you end up with 323 million in attorney fees? That makes no freaking sense. And Keisha says, so did he actually get sued for hurting people's feelings? Yes. Essentially, that is what happened. He was sued for hurting people's feelings because he said things that they didn't like, and they took him to court and won because feelings. Raccoon says, can they explain why the same man that was the father of one of the kids was also seen dressed in SWAT gear? No, they can't. And Fluke Man says, other prepper channels said freeze-dried foods keep 98% of the nutrition. I don't know. I just know that a lot of those, I know a lot of those like long-term foods like that typically are not very healthy. Usually because of being heavily salted or preservatives or lacking in protein or something. So I would hedge my bets and do all of it within reason, because you don't want to like blow all your money on stuff, especially that the long-term foods. If you don't eat it in regular rotation, you're still wasting your time if it never gets used. Monkey says, Jesus, this is literally profiting off the death of their kids. Yes, it is. And Gary says, crisis actors, where's the Oscars? And Cruising says, sounds plausible to me because of the years between the event and now and the price of high-power law firms, and there are probably a dozen lawyers per family. It was a kangaroo court. Anyways. And BV says, explain how they were harmed for $1 billion in damages. I'm harmed too. Where's my $1 billion? My feelings been hurt a lot. Preparedness says they definitely made a figurehead of Alex. Exactly. Jack says bad things happen and people die sadly. That is reality. And again, whether he's right or wrong, whether you agree with him or not, whether you agree with his approach or not, he has a right to express his opinion. Oh, Prime says don't confuse freeze-dried food with dehydrated. Okay, good point. And preparedness says MREs, for example, are not supposed to be eaten for more than 3 months because of adverse effects. I've heard that. And Keisha says, no wonder I stay in the house all the time. And Lady Pop says, give a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate a thumbs up. That would be great. They say that it helps with the algorithm. I think that's a load of crap, but I appreciate it. And thank you very much. And with that, I'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. We're into the top of the hour. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, and at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter. And there it is, Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And so with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everybody who joined us today. Again, thank you to Cruising for helping out on the GoFundMe. Means a lot. And we will do this again Monday. Hope everybody got something out of the conversation. Thanks again.